Hello everybody, welcome to Buxton Wellbeing. My name is Tim and thank you for joining me today as I talk about the latest of my CBT therapy appointments that I have had. Appointment number 5, and then this is the 6th video. I got that wrong in the last videos. I just said 4 on everything. So we're on appointment number 5 of my 6 appointments for CBT, or a planned 6 appointments, although I'm going to be talking a little bit about that during this session as I'm talking to you today. So, appointment number 5, the penultimate appointment, and it was just kind of rounding off everything that we have spoken about so far already, and essentially putting into place the things which I need to put into place. So, for example, I've had the homework recently of having to do an action plan or an activity plan. So this is a plan of the activities that I am going to be doing, working out exactly where they're going to fit in with my week. And it has been a little bit of a struggle to try and do that because I'm quite busy and trying to find time where I can do pleasurable things as well as stuff that I need to be doing and stuff like that has been pretty rough. So the homework for the last appointment, so coming into appointment number 5, was to do this activity plan and figure out where I'm going to slot things in. And we essentially brushed over that. She didn't need to know exactly when I was supposed to be doing. She's not going to ask me directly, okay, when are you doing this? When are you doing that? When are you doing this? She's not going to ask those questions because that's kind of setting me up to fail in a way. If I start speaking those things out loud as like, I am doing this on Thursday, I am doing this on Saturday, and I don't get to do it because something else comes up, it's setting me up to fail. But I had a plan in mind as to what I was going to be doing and how I was going to implement the things that I wanted to implement. So essentially, the entire appointment was that, and also talking about some of the things that I wanted to discuss. So at the start of every session, we have to go through our usual health and safety questions, and then we have to talk. She opens the floor to me and sort of says, right, is there anything that you want to bring up? And this week there was. There's been a couple of weeks where I've actually thought, yeah, I'm going to bring something up, and this video is going to be a little bit more personalized to my experience rather than the usual just telling what the appointment was, because the appointment was discussing this sort of stuff. So just recently, and what I wanted to bring up with here, I have been having some weird thoughts lately, and there's a Kingdom Hearts reference there somewhere. I know that there is. And I'm a big fan of Kingdom Hearts. So yeah, I've been having some weird thoughts recently, and it has been me blowing things out of proportion and having these thoughts that don't normally go through my mind, and sort of them making my anxiety spike a little bit more. So I scored higher on my anxiety. I actually scored the same on my anxiety score this week as what I did at the very start of having the CBT. And obviously naysayers will look at this and go, well, CBT obviously doesn't work, does it? But gradually my scores have been coming down. But then I've been having these strange thoughts, which they were making me anxious. I had a really bad day on last Monday where I was like, I feel really awful and I feel really anxious. So I was struggling to function as I normally would. So these weird thoughts have been me. I used the word catastrophizing, but I don't think it is catastrophizing as such in an actual definition sense. But that was the only word that I can think of. It's basically me blowing things out of proportion, me seeing like having the worst possible thoughts in a situation. So I believe that I am a fairly good driver. I'm a safe driver. I've never, touch wood, had any major collisions or crashes or anything like that. I believe that I'm a pretty safe driver. But just recently going through my head has been the thought of, as I'm about to get in the car, what if I don't survive this journey? What if I have a crash? What if something happens? And I don't quite understand where those thoughts were coming from, because they've never come from. I've been driving now for 14 years, and I've never had thoughts like that. And they're not active thoughts. They're not thoughts of me like saying I'm going to crash my car or anything like that. Not like a self-harm or suicide thought, which I have previous experience of. Like, I'm pretty sure I've said before, I had the tree picked out which I was going to crash into if I felt like it on the day. Thankfully never did. But these were just thoughts that were just coming into my mind of, what if I die? What if something happens to me? What happens then? Like, and these are thoughts that were making me incredibly anxious, and I'm talking about them now, and I can feel myself getting a little bit more anxious about it whilst talking. The other one that I had in my mind is, I live on my own, and generally speaking, I'm quite reclusive. I don't go out too much. I don't see people too often. So I don't know why, again, it came into my mind, but it came into my head that if I was to have something serious happen to me, if I was to have a heart attack and I couldn't get to the phone or whatever, I'm not surviving. There's nobody here to go and grab the defib from across the road and come and get me and save me. And people wouldn't find me until the next time I was due to go into work, the next time I was due to pick my daughter up, or the next time that I was due to have friends come over. Which, if on a week off, that could be a whole week. Like, it could be a long time. I like to think that some of my friends would realise that I haven't texted, but I do go some weeks without texting. So maybe, I don't know. So these thoughts were going through my head, and I told my therapist about this. And she kind of said that these are thoughts that are a little bit more concerning and potentially would warrant me requiring the higher level of intervention of CBT and go on for another few weeks of longer appointments. So I'm not exactly thrilled about that, but also I'll take whatever help that I can get, because these thoughts have been generally worrying to me. I've been really concerned about having them. So yeah, I did want to talk about that, because these thoughts are completely irrational. These are thoughts that are just going through my head and there's no particular reason for them. So I'm a little bit concerned that they're happening, and I definitely knew that I needed to address them before this CBT was up. And I'm kind of glad that I did now, because now she can kind of potentially refer me through into the higher intensive course if I need it, if she feels that I need it. Now this week I've had a little bit less of those thoughts, thankfully. It's still crept in a little bit here and there, but last week was really bad for them. So that's something that I definitely wanted to think about, and it resulted in her giving me 2 things at the end of the appointment. So the majority of the appointment was talking about these sorts of things, and talking about how these things are obviously not helpful, not helpful in the slightest, and they're not even true. I guess they are true, but they're not going to happen. No, they're very unlikely to happen. It's unlikely. I'm a fairly fit individual. It's unlikely that I will suffer a heart attack in the house. Again, touch wood. It's unlikely that I will have a car crash. Like, 14 years of experience suggests that I'm not going to have a car crash every single time I go out in my car. There's no reason to believe that today should be any different than the last 14 years. But these things happen, and they can happen, and accidents do happen. But the thing is, like, because I'm having those negative thoughts and I'm having those feelings go through my head, I think I'm then also almost prophesizing them to come true. So because I'm anxious, when I got in the car and I drove, it wasn't natural, because I was worried. So yeah, I kind of almost in a way made it come true. I didn't get anywhere close to having a crash or anything like that, but like I took myself out of the game. I took myself out of driving and ended up overthinking things far too much because of my anxiety. And that caused me to then, I don't think, necessarily drive to the best of my abilities, maybe. I don't know. Putting extra stress is more likely to give me a heart attack than not giving me extra stress. So when my brain is doing that sort of thing to me, I'm like, how does this, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. And I'm almost making it come true. I'm making myself ill because of it. So yeah, last week was a little bit of a struggle for me, and I went into this appointment and told her all about that, and she was very empathetic about it all and gave me some good things to try and help me. So I want to go through those things with you today as our little activity so that I can share what has been shared with me. So she shared with me the stop technique, which is apparently something that they'll go through in more detail if I do have the higher intensive course. And she also shared with me a sheet on unhelpful thinking styles. And I'm going to go through all of those things with you in this video. So let's cover the stop technique. And she only briefly covered it, and she sent me through a sheet with this information on, but I haven't really practiced it all that much. So it's something that I need to potentially do. And I think sometimes you do this one naturally and you don't realize how much it helps. And then if you can get it to become second nature, that when you get those anxious thoughts coming through your head, you do this technique, then I think it'll be very, very beneficial. So the stop technique is literally, you stop yourself. You physically stop in your head. You tell yourself stop. So when you're getting an anxious thought that starts going through your head, of one of those thoughts of I'm a failure, I'm going to crash the car, all of these things that go through your head, stop what you're doing. Say in your mind, stop, as a sudden thing, and take a minute to evaluate yourself. So it starts with stop. That is the S of the stop technique. Then T, take a break, take a breath. So it is asking you to stop and then breathe. So it is a deep breath in through the nose and then a slow exhale out through pursed lips. And as you are breathing, expand your stomach out and let it fill you up. So take a breath. Let yourself breathe. Open up your lungs and breathe. And whilst you're doing that, do the O, which is observe your thoughts, your feelings, and your physical sensations. Allow yourself to become an outside observer to these things. You've got physical sensations all of the time when you are doing these things. My fingers go numb. When I'm really anxious, my fingers start going numb and I have to tip-a-tap, 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 just to keep the feelings in my fingers. Observe those thoughts. And then the P is proceed. So you then proceed whilst focusing on one small thing that you can focus on right now that you can do, and try and ignore the rest of what is going on. So it's observe those feelings, let yourself go through them fully, and then proceed with your day. And hopefully try and get rid of those negative things. But it is about trying to input a stop mechanism into your thoughts, so that as these thoughts start running away with you and running away with you and running away with, stop. And go. So I get it, and I think it is something that we naturally do. Like, you will have these negative thoughts, and if you are anything like me, you'll sometimes go stop. But this is a lot more sudden. Yeah, stop. One time, you just say it, and then you take your breath and you go. And I think we can all do with breathing exercises. Breathing exercises are so useful. And I downloaded once an app called Finch. I don't know if anybody has heard of it. It's a well-being app. And I ended up not using it all that much. But it had some breathing exercises on there. So like it would actually give you the times in which to breathe for and tell you, you inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth for this length of time. And some of them were like really long exhales so that you were really struggling to get all of that breath out. So yeah, those are things we could all do with some breathing exercises. That's kind of just a breathing exercise to go through. Then we've also got the unhelpful thinking styles sheet, which she provided for me. So she provided this sheet, and she didn't actually cover any of this face-to-face, like talking. She just provided this because it's still only a half-hour session, and these are things that actually come under the hour-long sessions. So unhelpful thinking styles, on there, it's basically got a load of things that you say, you start thinking to yourself that just don't help. And they're always negative. They're always negative in some way towards yourself and, interestingly, towards others as well, that put you into that negative situation. So how many of these do you find that you do? How many of these do you relate to? So all or nothing thinking, or thinking in black and white. So all or nothing thinking. If I'm not perfect, I am a failure. Can't just be good at something, you have to be perfect at something. I relate to that for sure. If I don't do something right, I've done it wrong. Whereas there's also doing your best, and there's also trying hard, and there's also doing the most of it right and getting one small part of it wrong. If I don't do something 100% right, I've done it wrong. So yeah, all or nothing thinking, check that box. That's definitely something that I agree with, that I resonate with. Over generalizing. So you draw a broad conclusion from a single event. So if you've got a single event where you make a mistake on something, maybe you get a low score on a test, maybe you make a mistake at work, and you then start thinking, I'm a failure. Maybe you have somebody, you're in a relationship and they split up with you. I'm a loser. Maybe, you get into a fight with a friend, and you know that that friend loves you, and you know that that friend is going to be there for you, but you have a little bit of an argument. So therefore, you're a bad person, overgeneralizing. And that might be the case of, like, you have been a bad person to that person now. You have been a bad person, but it doesn't mean that you're always a bad person. So you're overgeneralizing it. Mental filter. So you only pay attention to certain evidence. My boss does a thing, because my boss is well aware of my mental health, and my boss is well aware of how I struggle because I've taken days off because of my mental health. I've had various chats with him about my mental health. He's actually quite good at trying to counteract this one. So he tends to, his way of counteracting my mental health issues is by telling me, I am a valued member of the team. I work hard. I appreciate everything that I do, and he does not believe that there's any problems within my work. But for me, I pay attention to certain evidence. So if I do a little bit of something wrong, that counteracts the fact that I've done lots of things that are actually quite good. So I only listen to the evidence that says that I'm bad, whereas generally speaking, and to the outside world, I believe that the evidence says that I am a good worker. And this applies to everything. So I look around the house right now and it's a little bit messy. This means that I'm a bad adult and I can't do adulting correctly. It's not the case. It means that I've struggled to have time to do anything because I've been recording videos and things like that. So yeah, it's only paying attention to that negative stuff. That also kind of goes alongside disqualifying the positive. So you discount the good things that you've done. And I say this to a lot of people who come into, and it's strange because I don't listen to this advice myself, but it's advice that I give because I run, I'm a fitness instructor and I run referrals from GPs that come in every now and again. And sometimes I will get referrals that come in for people's mental health. And I'll be talking to the person and I will say to them, like, as humans, we are quite poorly made at times. In that, like, we're a negative species, or we've become a negative species automatically. And I think, generally speaking, humans will discount those positive thoughts and discount all of the positive things that you do in order to focus on the negative stuff. So I say to people within my work context that, like, you could save somebody's life first thing in the morning, but that night you drop a plate and the only thing that you think about is the fact that you dropped that plate. And it's so strange that that's what we do. We don't end up feeling proud about the fact that we saved somebody's life that morning. Obviously, saving somebody's life is an extreme, but that's what I tell people, because I do think we discount the positive a lot and we end up focusing on the negatives and just struggle with it. And yeah, I know that I do that a lot. I know that I do it a lot. Jumping to conclusions. There's two different forms of jumping to conclusions, according to this. First of all is mind reading. So this is where you jump to the conclusion of, this person is thinking this about me. And you jump to the conclusion, and 2 + 2 = 5. And you've got the wrong end of the stick, but you jump to that conclusion. And generally speaking, us with our depression and our anxieties, we may be a bit shy, we maybe don't like the confrontation. So maybe we don't actually address these things with the person, we don't actually talk to them, but we jump to the conclusions, and in our mind, that person hates us now because we've jumped to the conclusion that we did this, so that person must hate us. No, not necessarily. So it's jumping to that conclusion. And we also do a lot of predicting the future as a jumping to conclusion. So kind of like, if you make a small mistake at work, you know, I'm going to have a disciplinary for this. Probably not. If it's a small mistake, you're probably not going to have a disciplinary. You're probably not even going to have a talking to about it. Maybe it'll just be laughed off and you'll be absolutely fine. I do a lot of predicting the future, I feel, with some of the things that I go through. That I'm not going to go into too much. That one's a little bit too personal. But yeah, predicting the future is definitely something that I get. And I predict the future years in advance. I know what people are going to be thinking in 10 years' time as a response to things that I'm doing now. And it's not good. It's not good. And I know it isn't good, but I do it. So I guess these are things that we need to break. So I guess by showing us these things, then it's like, can you recognize these things within you? Because you need to change these things. Magnification and minimalization. So it's blowing things out of proportion or shrinking it down to the point where it matters too little. So if you blow things out of proportion, like I say, a lot of this time it's you ending up having a negative feeling about somebody else. So somebody else makes a small mistake and you go, oh, how could you do that? This is actually the worst thing that's ever happened in this workplace. This workplace is absolutely terrible. How could you do that? No, it's just something small. It's just something small, and you don't need to do that. I do that a lot. I know that I do that a lot. I don't minimalize things, I don't think, but I certainly blow things out of proportion for sure. Emotional reasoning, equating feelings to the truth. So the example that it gives is, I feel embarrassed, so therefore I must look like an idiot because I'm embarrassed. And it's one of them things where, like, you have those things that you remember years and years ago that happened to you, and it's like that cringe moment. And they're really stupid, and the people that are involved with it do not remember it. But you do, because it happened to you. One that comes back to my mind all of the time, and this is so stupid, but it makes me cringe, and it's a negative thought every single time. But it's just a cringe. I felt like I felt like an idiot because I once went over to a friend's house and they offered me a drink. Said as a list, I've got orange, blackcurrant. I've got orange and blackcurrant and this and this and this, and I said I'll have orange and blackcurrant. So stupid. But I felt like an idiot, and I felt so stupid. And that person absolutely does not remember me doing that. Absolutely does not care that I did that. But this is now 8, 9, 10 years ago that I had this conversation. I still remember it. And it still comes back every now and again as something that I go, why did I do that? So, yeah. But in that moment, yeah, I felt like an idiot. I felt embarrassed. So I feel like I looked like an idiot to that person. And I didn't. They're my friend. So, yeah. Using critical words like must, should, ought. So, I must feel better. I must be happy. I ought to be happy. I should be happy. They're not useful. They're not useful terms. I've thought it a lot of times about myself. Everybody else can be happy. Why can't I? I should be happy. I should be able to deal with these things. I should be able to deal with this stuff that goes on in my mind, but I can't. Why can't I? And that's what kind of runs through your head. It's, again, not helpful. Labeling ourselves or others, and normally that is a critical label. The one that I use on myself a lot is that I'm stupid. The one that I use on myself a lot is that I am stupid. I'm an idiot. I'm a loser. If you look at evidence, I am not an idiot. I am not stupid. I got good grades in school. I have always done well in exams. I'm pretty smart. But I do dumb things every now and again. And whenever I do something like that, I say to myself, you are stupid. And it's not helpful. Just putting myself down. Somebody else does something stupid around me, they're an idiot. They're a waste of time. They're useless. And I think we could all probably do with having that mentality of not being so negative about ourselves and not being so negative about others. But that's something that I need to work on. That's some personal growth for me. And the last one, personalization, blaming yourself for things or blaming others for things that could not be helped. So I did this a lot. I do this a lot. I proportion blame onto other people. They weren't doing this, they weren't doing that, so this happened. It's their fault. I also do it to myself as well. Because I didn't do this, this happened. Because I didn't do this, this happened. And yeah, blaming myself for things that I can't have any control over is definitely something that I do. So those are the unhelpful thinking styles that were sent through to me, as well as the stop technique. And I'm guessing I'm going to go through a little bit more of those over the next few weeks if I end up having these longer sessions. I don't know whether I'm partly upset that I need the longer sessions. I think part of me is like disappointed in myself, and that again is a negative feeling to have. But also part of me is like, look, clearly these thoughts aren't right. These thoughts are not what are supposed to be going through my head. So, and I know that I shouldn't be feeling negative about myself. So, therefore, I do need it, and that's fine. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you've learned a little bit of something from this. I've got one more appointment of my regular sessions, and then we'll make the decision as to whether I'm having further treatment or not. But either way, you'll be going through it every step of the way with me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I've helped somebody out there. Please stay safe, take care, you are loved, and I'll see you next time.